The SS Yongala, a passenger and cargo ship since 1903, spent its brief lifespan adventuring across the continent of Australia until, like the fateful destiny of many ill-fated vessels, it succumbed to tragedy. In 1911, a mere 8 years into its voyage, the ship encountered the world's largest coral reef system, the Great Barrier Reef, off the northeast coast of Australia. There, it was capsized by a storm, claiming the lives of all 122 passengers aboard. Subsequently, the Australian media dubbed this maritime disaster the Titanic of Townsville. Surprisingly, for nearly half a century following the incident, the exact location of the shipwreck remained unknown. It wasn't until 1958 that divers discovered the SS Yongala's whereabouts, inadvertently transforming it into one of the most beloved diving sites. With over 10,000 divers exploring its depths annually, the SS Yongala became a magnet for underwater adventurers. On October 22, 2003, at 9 a.m. in Townsville, Queensland, Australia, Tina Watson, along with her husband Gabe Watson and other passengers, boarded a boat to embark on an expedition to explore the sunken SS Yongala. After a short boat ride, the couple arrived at the dive site where they received a brief orientation from the dive master. Equipped with their own diving gear, Tina and Gabe, along with 4 other divers, descended into the ocean, expecting to witness the majestic underwater scenery. However, mere minutes into the dive, an unexpected turn of events occurred. Gabe resurfaced and returned to the boat, citing issues with his dive watch. This device provided crucial technical metrics, including noise levels, depth, and dive duration, essential for safe diving. After inspecting Gabe's watch, the crew replaced the battery, and fortunately, the seemingly malfunctioning device resumed functioning. With the watch operational again, Gabe and Tina descended back into the water for another dive. However, just 2 minutes after the couple descended into the water, Gabe surfaced alone, frantically signaling that Tina was in danger. Upon hearing Gabe's distress call, the dive master immediately leaped into the water. To his horror, he witnessed Tina rapidly sinking to the ocean floor in front of him. In a moment of peril, the experienced dive master remained calm and exerted all his strength to swim to Tina's aid. Despite being at a depth of 30 meters, he reached Tina's location in less than 30 seconds. However, Tina was unconscious by the time he reached her. Swiftly, the dive master brought Tina back to the surface, where the crew rushed to her aid, performing CPR. Meanwhile, Gabe, still visibly shaken, watched his wife with deep concern. Rescue teams worked tirelessly for 41 minutes to save Tina, but tragically, their efforts were in vain. Tina passed away at 11:21 a.m. Initially, the incident was deemed a diving accident. However, shortly after, the dive master discovered Tina's dive watch on her wrist, which recorded her dive duration at just 7 minutes. This revelation indicated that Tina had tragically perished within a short time of diving. Tears streamed down Gabe's face as colleagues inquired about what had happened. Gabe tearfully described it as a sudden accident, explaining that strong underwater currents had startled Tina, causing her to panic and inadvertently dislodge his breathing mask, leading to a loss of oxygen. In response to the dive master's question of why he didn't attempt to rescue Tina himself, Gabe illogically claimed that he had an issue with his hand at the time, preventing him from diving deeper to save his wife. He also admitted to never receiving training in underwater rescue techniques. However, at that time, Gabe was an experienced diver and even had a rescue diver certification. The dive team leader knew about Gabe's diving experience and couldn't understand why Gabe didn't rescue his wife when she was in danger right in front of him. The next day, the autopsy results showed that the cause of Tina's death was asphyxiation and her body exhibited symptoms of airway obstruction. However, Investigators questioned why they found only a small amount of water in Tina's lungs, whereas drowning victims typically have more water. Despite Tina's death remaining a mystery, investigators initially concluded it was an accident. 5 days after the incident, Gabe returned to the U.S. with Tina's body and immediately organized a funeral for his wife. Friends and family gathered at the funeral to console Gabe over his wife's tragic death. Strangely, at Tina's funeral, Gabe smiled and acted as if he were happy about her death, even mocking her demise with Tina's family and friends. Furthermore, after the funeral, Gabe attempted to claim his late wife's insurance money through travel insurance he had purchased before their honeymoon. However, when the insurance company refused to pay out, citing that it was an accident that occurred while diving, Gabe gave up. Tina's father, Tommy, was angry about Gabe's behavior at the funeral and his attempt to claim Tina's insurance money. Feeling the need for further investigation into his daughter's death, Tommy eventually traveled alone to Australia and personally met with people on the boat to investigate. The police, suspicious of foul play, reinvestigated the case and found several discrepancies. Firstly, during interviews with the divers present on the boat with Tina and Gabe on that day, one of the divers revealed that the dive inadvertently hit Gabe and Tina. The video footage showed them hugging underwater, with Gabe seemingly holding Tina in a way that prevented her from moving. An underwater photo taken by another diver also became crucial evidence, showing that Gabe abandoned his wife sinking to the bottom of the sea and swam to the surface. This became a key piece of evidence in the case, along with the autopsy detail of finding only a small amount of water in Tina's lungs. The hypothesis was raised that Gabe took advantage of the moment when no one around was paying attention to deliberately turn off Tina's air supply. Gabe's act of hugging his wife was actually to keep her unconscious until he reopened the air supply and let the victim sink into the water before he made any movements to resurface to seek rescue. Another suspicious circumstance was Tina skipping the trial dive before exploring such a dangerous area as the coral reef. This decision was considered reckless. Gabe was immediately investigated for this, and the reason behind the issue was that Gabe didn't allow Tina to participate in the trial dive under the pretext that he would personally guide her. A third suspicious detail was that the police knew that, typically, natural buoyancy causes divers to float to the surface, so divers need to wear dive weights to dive effectively. However, it was unusual that Tina wore more weight than necessary during that dive. While Tina's body normally required only an additional weight of about 3 Ki.l.ling, on that day, Tina wore a weight of 9 Ki.ling, and it was Gabe who had put it on her. When the dive team leader questioned Gabe about the weight Tina was wearing at the time of the accident, Gabe calmly stated that he added extra weight to help his wife dive more easily and had no other intention. The dive team leader informed the police about all of Gabe's suspicious behavior before and after the accident. On July 2004, Australian police turned the case into a criminal case, considering Gabe a suspect, and decided to summon Gabe from the U.S. to Australia for investigation. However, Gabe refused the Australian government's summons and answered the court's questions through his attorneys via written documents. Nevertheless, the Australian authorities confirmed that Gabe's response documents described the incident differently from the records of his actions stored on the dive computer he wore on his wrist. The Utah authorities believed that Gabe had lied to conceal the truth that he had caused his wife's death by turning off her breathing apparatus underwater and making her motionless with just a hug. On the police side, they also speculated that Gabe was the culprit, although they did not understand why a man who had been married for only 11 days would try to kill his wife. The police discovered Gabe's motive for the crime through the testimony of Tommy, Tina's father. Tommy revealed that before the incident, Gabe had persuaded to increase his wife's life insurance policy and change the beneficiary to himself. Based on Tommy's testimony, the police believe that Gabe killed his wife for money. Australian police immediately accused Gabe of murder and attempted to summon him to Australia. However, Gabe declared that he would never go to Australia. Then, in May 2009, 6 years after the incident, Gabe couldn't bear the pressure from the Australian authorities and moved to Australia to investigate the truth about his wife Tina's death. Finally, the truth was revealed to the whole world. Tina Watson was actually born in West Germany in 1977 until 1980 when she turned 3 years old. Tina was adopted by Tommy and Cindy in the state of Alabama, USA, and brought home to live with her adoptive parents in a strange environment, but Tina did not face any difficulties with the boundless love of her new family. Tina had a happy childhood like many other wonderful children, but the only sad thing is that from an early age, Tina was diagnosed with rapid heart rate syndrome, called SVT. Because of this condition, Tina had to live with the risk of rapid heartbeat problems, dizziness, drowsiness, and difficulty breathing. And when Tina was 24 years old, she underwent many surgeries to correct this problem. However, her symptoms did not easily disappear despite her somewhat fragile health. Relatives and friends around Tina tried not to lose her optimistic spirit. She learned to take care of herself, taking care of even the cute dogs at home diligently and studying. Tina also made great efforts when she could pass the entrance exam to the University of Alabama, the top public university in the state of Alabama, located in the heart of the southeastern United States, with the slogan, "Where legends are made, the University of Alabama is the school of successful people in many fields." Bruce Culpepper, former chairman of Shell Oil Company. Tina's life became even more complete when she immersed herself in love with a male student from another state. The relationship was so good that they got engaged after a period of getting to know each other. The ring worn on Tina's finger is evidence of the sweetness in their relationship. But then one day, Tina met Gabe Watson, who was pursuing a master's degree at the same university. Despite knowing that Tina was engaged, Gabe repeatedly asked Tina out, even when Tina rejected his advances, saying she was already engaged. However, Gabe didn't give up. Meanwhile, Tina remained steadfast in her original intention. It seemed like there was no hope between Tina and Gabe, but after a while, due to Tina's parents' opposition, she and her fiancé were forced to break off the engagement. Of course, Gabe didn't miss this opportunity and immediately pursued a dating relationship with Tina. Finally, after a long period of persistent efforts, Tina agreed, swayed by Gabe's sincerity. Over time, Tina completely changed. She fell deeply in love with Gabe, constantly boasting to her father about him, a man she met in college, and telling him she wanted to marry Gabe. Initially, Tina's father opposed her relationship with Gabe as they felt no affection for him. However, they also understood that they had once hindered Tina's love affair, and now they didn't want to hurt their daughter anymore. Therefore, they accepted her marriage to Gabe with joy. Tina and Gabe dreamed of a happy future, preparing for their wedding. At that time, for a couple, the honeymoon was as important as the wedding itself. So, before getting married, Tina and Gabe discussed their honeymoon destination, which turned out to be Australia. Tina was particularly excited about scuba diving in the world's largest coral reef, the Great Barrier Reef. When Tina's parents heard about their daughter's honeymoon plans, they began to worry. They didn't want their daughter, who was born with a weak heart, to dive into the ocean in such a dangerous way. When Gabe learned of this, he went to see Tina's parents and assured them not to worry. At the same time, he boasted about his impressive diving experience and assured them that Tina would be safe with him. To ease Tina's parents' worries, Gabe arranged for Tina to take diving lessons and obtain her diving certification before their honeymoon. Despite Gabe completing 55 dives before the trip, while Tina had only completed 5, he was confident in Tina's abilities. On September 26, 2003, 18 days before the wedding, Gabe gradually revealed his true intentions to Tina, whispering to her to increase the limit on her life insurance policy and designate him as the sole beneficiary. Although Tina found it confusing, she didn't suspect her husband to be. However, she did confide in her father about this, and Mr. Tommy naturally felt that something was amiss. He advised his daughter to reconsider her decision after the honeymoon. On October 11, 2003, Tina and Gabe finally got married amidst the blessings of everyone, including friends and family. Video clips of the wedding, along with photographs capturing Tina's happy smile, depicted a blissful moment. Little did Tina know that less than half a month later, her life would become a drama with no tomorrow. According to the plan, after the wedding, the newlyweds were supposed to travel to Australia for their honeymoon, staying in Sydney for the first week and then heading to Townsville, Queensland, for diving in the second week. However, Tina tragically returned to God just 7 minutes after starting her dive, ending the dream honeymoon in a nightmare. The time when Australian police considered Gabe as the main suspect, accusing him of murder and attempting to bring him back to Australia, while Gabe ignored the summons from the Australian government. Meanwhile, in the United States, he exhibited mysterious behaviors, until one day, flowers and gifts placed at Tina's grave began to deteriorate or disappear. Upon receiving reports from Tina's parents, the police checked the surveillance cameras around the grave and were surprised to find Gabe regularly appearing at Tina's grave, destroying flowers and gifts, and throwing everything into the trash when investigated. Gabe insisted that he was only tidying up the belongings to ensure the aesthetic of his wife's grave, regardless of his excuses. The court immediately issued a restraining order preventing Gabe from accessing Tina's grave. The surprising thing is that amidst the unclear trial proceedings, in 2006, 3 years after Tina's death, Gabe hastily began publicly dating another woman named Kim Lewis. Even in August 2008, he decided to remarry a woman named Kim Lewis. On May 13, 2009, Gabe was once again summoned to Australia. Under pressure from the Australian government, initially Gabe decided to resist and refused to be extradited by the Australian authorities. However, when the Australian government unexpectedly proposed to transfer the case from murder to manslaughter, he decided to respond to the summons and went to Australia to participate in the trial process. Upon Gabe's arrival in Australia, the trial began. Here, Gabe still insisted on his innocence and pleaded guilty only to failing to save his wife. On June 5, 2009, Gabe was sentenced to 4 years and 6 months in prison for willfully failing to save his wife when he had the opportunity to do so. However, Gabe appealed, arguing that the sentence was unreasonable, and eventually his argument was accepted, reducing the sentence to 18 months in prison. Tina's family was outraged by the court's decision and began thinking of ways to punish Gabe. At this point, the family's lawyer advised Tina's mother that if Gabe were to be released from Australia, not to worry, but to sue him in the United States, as he could face more fitting punishment if sued in the U.S. Finally, Tina's parents followed the advice of their lawyer and sued Gabe for murder, alleging that Gabe had planned to kill his wife while they were still in the United States, before both went on their honeymoon to Australia. U.S. prosecutors also agreed with Tina's parents' statement. Consequently, they requested the Australian government to extradite Gabe to the United States. The Australian government responded that Gabe would be returned to the United States if the U.S. government committed to following extradition laws, meaning they would not seek the death penalty for extradited criminals. The result was that the state of Alabama in the United States agreed to the Australian government's request and promised to comply with the law. On November 1, 2010, Gabe was released from Australian prison after serving his 18-month sentence, before being handed over to the United States. Upon returning to the U.S., Gabe was immediately arrested at the airport and prosecuted for murder. Prosecutors alleged that Gabe had intentionally lured his wife Tina, who had a weak heart, into participating in a scuba diving activity, leading to her death, in order to collect life insurance money after her death. To prove their case, prosecutors used evidence such as heavier than normal weights attached to Tina's body, preventing her from participating in the orientation dive, Gabe's willful failure to rescue his wife, and his attempt to change the beneficiary of Tina's life insurance policy before going on their honeymoon. However, the court ruled that the evidence of heavier weights attached to the wife's body and preventing her from participating in the orientation dive could not be used as evidence to charge Gabe with murder. The court also noted to the prosecutors that Gabe's conviction for not rescuing his wife when she was in danger had already been punished in Australia. Ultimately, the court ruled that the evidence of Gabe attempting to change the beneficiary of Tina's life insurance policy was not admissible because, by the time of their honeymoon, the beneficiary of Tina's life insurance policy had not been changed. Finally, the court acquitted Gabe of all charges. Gabe is now living in the United States with his wife Kim Lewis, who bears a striking resemblance to Tina and has known Gabe since high school. It remains unknown whether Gabe and Kim Lewis met while Tina was still alive, or if they came together after Tina's death. If Gabe secretly met and communicated with Kim while planning his wedding with Tina, it would provide another reason for Tina's death. Nevertheless, one undeniable truth remains. In the end, Gabe was acquitted and is now free, while Tina's parents, who raised and always loved her dearly, are going through difficult times filled with bitterness and despair over the loss of their beloved daughter, Tina.